Now, President Trump has begun his push to cut corporate taxes by coming up with the, of course, fallacy that a lot of Republicans use, that the United States happens to be the highest have the highest corporate tax in the world. Now, he tweeted that we will be going north to North Dakota today to discuss tax reform and tax cuts. We are the highest tax nation in the world. That will change. Now, that is wildly untrue, as I'm about to show you. According to data compiled in 2015 by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, it shows that the U.S. is way behind countries such as the U.K., Germany, and France in terms of taxes. Now, turns out that America has one of the lowest tax revenues by GDP percentage out of the 34 countries and is basically in the middle for tax revenue per capita and corporate tax revenue. The data also shows that the U.S. has below average income tax rates. So this whole baloney about us being, oh, we're the highest taxed nation in the world, we got the highest corporate taxes, that is untrue, demonstrably untrue. Okay. Now, this, of course, is something that Republicans will continue to say in their quest to cut corporate taxes. So how do the American people feel about this? Now, it turns out they're not very enthused about a giant corporate tax cut. Now, Trump, as I said, he wants to cut the tax rate to about 15%, right? That's the corporate tax rate. Now, Politico, in their new Morning Consult poll, asked about this, and they found that 6 in 10 respondents actually said that, no, we don't need to cut corporate taxes. We need to raise corporate taxes because corporations, they do not pay enough. Now, that is, of course, 6 in 10, that's 60% of Americans. Now, tax cuts for individuals, however, which Trump and Republicans say they're in favor of are actually far more popular in this poll. 74% of those polled say that they support tax cuts for the middle class. Yeah, of course. Now, we've looked at the Republican tax plan, and yes, they claim, oh, we're going to cut taxes for the middle class. Middle class is going to be great. We're going to have so much growth. You're going to save so much money. Now, it turns out that's not true. The lion's share of the benefits of that tax plan will go to the top 1%. Let me get some of the numbers here, right? Now, on average, if you're making less than $24,000 a year, you will get a total tax cut of about $50. Wow. Man, that, woo, massive tax cuts. That's going to spur some, a lot of spending. You could go to a movie. Now, if you're middle class, a little bit better, right? You will save about $260 to about $410 per year. Now, in total, that is a 0.5% of a reduction in your total tax rate that you pay. Wow. Man, that is a huge tax cut for the middle class. Woo. Now, let's get to the top 1%. No, top 0.1%. If you're in that top bracket, you will see a 16.9% change in after-tax reduction on your taxes. That means you will save an average of $1.2 million a year under this plan. A tax cut for the middle class? Not really. What this is, of course, when they say they're, oh, we're going to cut taxes, it's going to benefit the middle class, what they really mean is we're going to cut taxes for the rich, and it's going to benefit the rich. It's a giant boon for them, for the 1%, and with a few scraps thrown in for everybody else to make it more palatable. Now, none of this mentions the other programs that will benefit the poor and the middle class and how they're going to be devastated by the cuts in funding. Okay. Now, more from this poll. They also asked about the estate tax. Eliminating the estate tax drew support from a majority of respondents, 55%. Now, and as I mentioned before I get into the details of that, 61% of say that upper income people pay too little in taxes, while 40% say they pay too much. Now, again, how this ties in, well, think about it, right? Why is support for eliminating the estate tax so high when in reality, most people are never going to pay it? You see, that's very interesting. So most people are like, oh my God, don't do the death tax. Don't do the estate tax. Let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of it. wait a minute, you're not paying that tax. Oh, but turns out most people don't actually know that. Now, let me tell you who actually pays the estate tax. According to a 2015 report from Congress's Joint Committee on Taxation, roughly 0.2% of all Americans, or 1 out of every 500 people, will end up actually paying the tax. Not only that, but the households affected fall somewhere between the 95th and 99th percentile of all U.S. households, according to the Wall Street Journal. The top 1% of households that have a net worth of $6.8 million, while the top 5% have a net worth of at least $1.9 million. Those are the households that are going to pay the estate tax. And yet, Republicans seem to have convinced people that they are going to pay the estate tax, the people in the middle class. In reality, this affects, as you can see, a very small percentage of Americans. Basically, here's where you see the power of the right's messaging, right? They've convinced people that these taxes don't actually impact the super rich, but they affect most of everyone, which really they don't. In fact, you have to be incredibly wealthy to be hit by this. And when you explain that to people, they generally agree and go, oh, well, I didn't realize that. Now, like the poll indicates, most people actually think that raising taxes on the rich is a good thing, that we actually want them to do that. So, now, not only that, but most people, unsurprisingly, say that the middle income pays too much in taxes. That 60% and 52% said low-income people also pay too much in taxes. Those things, I think, are both true. But nowhere do they say why that is. Well, it's because the wealthy for years have been cutting their own tax rates. And in that time, taxes on the middle class have actually gone up. This isn't rocket science. It doesn't take a genius to figure this out. When the rich don't pay more, you end up paying to make up the difference. Now, maybe you don't pay more in effective taxes, right? But you end up paying more in lack of services or even privatized services, which of course make a profit that will, end up having you pay more out of pocket. Either way, the wealthy have found a way to leave you holding the bag, also that them and their donors can save millions of dollars. This tax cut push is not for you. It is for them. And they're going to make sure that they get their tax cuts no matter what. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.